Okay, so we're back here now. And so I actually ended up doing 18 because I was trying to do it fast. I thought I was doing time lapse, but I forgot to press the button. So I was trying to do it all like kind of fast and smooth. And I ended up doing 18. Now 18 compared to 16 is completely negligible. So you should still just do 16. But again, that shows you like if you do 18, so what? Big whoop. I wouldn't go too much lower than 16 though, but but again, it's all about that ratio. So it does kind of matter because it will throw off that, balance of the spidery outside tendrils and the denser inside part that we're aiming for here. Now, so these were all supposed to be 16 5-inch continuous loops. And I like to bend them. I don't know why. I just like the way it looks. It's kind of fun. You don't have to. You can bend them before. I don't know. Whatever. I do pre-bend them because it does help when I'm doing the assembly. Now, anyhow, so now the good news about that one is that's the monster bit. Because that's the only time we're going to do 16 of anything. That's the biggest continuous loops. So that takes the longest time. After this, like each thing takes less and less and less time. So that's the big one. But I still got that done in like 12 minutes about, so that's not too bad. Now, because everything else from here on out are going to be 8 or 6 continuous loops of each size. And there's 4 at the very center at one point. So we're going to do a 4-inch one, and there's 4.5-inch ones. Now we're going to do 8 of those. Now I'm going to show you, there's a few things that as I was doing that fast, I was realizing, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. So again, I'm cutting off at 4.5, and it can be just a fast chop because it doesn't have to be exact. It's nature. These are, petals are different, but we don't want to go, we do also want that gradation, because that is all about that profile too. You want the profile to look good. So again, I'm pushing out to about 1/4 of an inch. Now here's what I was going to say I do too, is once I get my measured out beads, I do this little motion like this with it, because I want to make sure that this previous thing has like a strong edge to it, like it's really going to be flat now across there. So I'll do a little wiggle with it. And then again, out about 1/4 of an inch, and I bring it behind. I bring it like under and behind, so that then it's laying there, and I pinch them at that 1/4 of an inch because I keep my thumb there. And that way I can do a towards me twist. And so I'm going to do about 3 or 4 of those. That's about right. And then I'm going to do my straightening again. I'm going to do my little jiggle as I go because I want them to be tight like this. See how they're all tight like this? Sometimes, and I don't want any gappage. I don't want any gappage on here. I don't want any bare wire showing, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do my little thing, and I'm going to aim. I'm going to look and see like which one's the top one. Because sometimes it's a little off kilter. So you're going to have to force one to be the top. So I'm going to force this one to be the top. I'm going to take my fingernail. I'm going to push it over even more than it might naturally be there to make it the top. Now don't go too crazy with this. It's just, again, it's a nice touch because it really makes the edge look like a petal instead of like looking at wire. And that one got flat on its own. I didn't have to bite this one. Isn't that nice? Just kidding. Though I do bite a lot of them. You might even see it. I'm going to go into time lapse now. And I'm actually going to do the remaining 16 of this, which is going to be 8 4.5-inch continuous loops and then 8 4-inch continuous loops. And then we're going to be done with this color. And this is by far the biggest chunk of it. So the good news is after this, like I said, your work actually diminishes. I guess you could start inside out, but I actually like knowing that the worst is over. Not the worst, but the most is over. And then after that, I'm just kind of I don't know. I always just started doing from the outside in. I don't know if that's normal or not, but, or whatever. But that's what most people do. Usual. I shouldn't say normal, but anyhow. So again, shaping as I go, not necessarily like a thing you have to do, but I actually kind of like looking at it. And I love this color. See, isn't this a cool color? It's just like this kind of vintage looking turquoise. It looks like some old turquoise jewelry, but like fake turquoise that like got dingy over time in a weird way, like just kind of costume jewelry. I don't know. I just think it's cool. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of those in time lapse, and then we'll talk about the next segment. Okay, so now I actually did the three bigger segments, though I guess they go down fast. So in size. So let's talk about, so I had my I finished up my first segment with the big one, with just that much left over from what I beaded. So it was really a close call. But again, so about 37, because 37 would be correct to make 37 4-inch scoops on your bead spinner. And again, just round up so you have a little wiggle room. So I had that much left, so I have my whole, I just wanted to show you how much was left from my estimation. I thought it was pretty good and close, but I got a little nervous there towards the end that I didn't have enough. Now, so that's my bigger segment, the biggest segment, part 1. And I still used my 24 gauge Kelly Green artistic wire to do my next segment. My next segment, second color, was this more sort of a teal color. So it's very similar. So it's going to grow on that one, and you can see how it kind of does a nice sort of color transition. Got to cut that long tail off. This one's really floppy because it's so big. So you can kind of see how that kind of does a nice color transition. Even better to see than when it's in the tubes. And so that middle segment, segment 2, was 8 3.5-inch continuous loops. Again, oh, and I left one like this. So sometimes when you're doing these continuous loops, you might have ones that don't pinch really well together because however the beads are hitting each other, you don't know. So I normally take, like, this is a side of like a bead tweezer scooper thing or whatever, something with even a side of your pliers as long as it's not sharp side. And I kind of I put this through the loop and just kind of rub gently up. And now notice it's like that. Now I can pinch it easier. See, and I can bring that middle bead into the front again and pinch it closed. So if you ever have ones that don't line up nicely, or they're like, for some reason, like the top is like a flat, like 3 are all flat and they're not letting you pinch it down to 1, that's one way to do it, is just put something kind of thin through here and just kind of rub it up in there and kind of force it to do it. So we had 8 3.5-inch continuous loops, and then that went into then 8 3-inch continuous loops right here, 8 3-inch continuous loops, and then, oh, those are right there, and then 8 2.5-inch continuous loops. Very flattened. This one didn't get as flattened as I want. I'm going to go give it a little bite. Now it's more flattened. Look at that. And then finishing up with 8 2-inch continuous loops. So that's 8 each of 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2. So I scaled down by a 1/2 inch each time. And so that's my second outer segment, second to the outside segment. And then this last one, that's the one that's, I'm not even sure you're getting this all in the frame, but that's the last one, is a bunch of different ones because that's where we're getting that density, right? Like I keep saying, I really like that middle density part, you know, to really have that cluster in the middle and then fan out. And so after many trials and error, trust me, this is the ratio I came up with, which I like, which again gives me something like this, right? So I have that cluster in the middle, which I mushed up, and then all these tendrily spider-like petals that I can make do all kinds of fun things on the outside. So there's a bunch of these. It looks a lot smaller because they're a lot shorter, but there's actually a lot of continuous loops in them. Now, for this one, for the middle segment, by the way, for the second segment, you're going to need 88 inches of beads. So that would be 22 4-inch scoops, like I showed you, like if you do 4-inch scoops up. And I stayed with the 24 gauge on this. So 88 inches of beads. Again, round up, you know, so to be safe, do like, you know, 100 or something. You know, it's easier to put back on than to deal with cutting off and having to put some on the ends. Now, this one has all of these things happening. It starts with, with this one, I needed 44 inches of beads. So 11 4-inch scoops. Now I stayed with a 24 gauge, but I regret that now because my wrist hurts, and I always just get nervous because again, I have to send my things out into the world without me guarding them, and I get worried that they're too fragile at 26. But to be honest, I would go to a 26 for this one. I used a different color. I used the Pacific Blue 24 gauge para-wire for this one because it's more of a turquoise, this final one, this final big one. So unit 3. So I used a turquoise one. And it's Pacific Blue, but it looks really turquoise, right? I don't know if you can see that. My lighting, kind of set off my lighting there a little bit. So, oh, that's because I didn't turn on my big light. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. That's a little brighter. Awesome. Okay, so let's shed some light on that. So now, so I use like a turquoise on that one. And again, there's a bunch of little things here. So there's 8 2-inch continuous loops, and then 8 1. And now I'm grading down by a 1/4 inch because I really want that density. So I started with 2 inches, and I'm going down by a 1/4 inch every time. But I'm changing from 8 in a second. So I do 8 2-inch, 8 1 3/4, 8 1 1/2 here, and now I'm going to turn into 6. So 6 1 1/4. I'm off counting here. 6 1 1/4, 6 1 inches, and finally 6 3/4 inches. So there's actually 6 different size measurements going down by a 1/4 inch. So 8 2 inches, 8 1 3/4 inches, 8 1 1/2 inches, and then we go down into 6 1 1/4, 6 1s, and then 6 3/4 inches. So 8 8 6 6 6. So that's that one, and we get this little fringe. Now the very last one is just the middle little section, and I'm going to show you here. It's so small. It's just that little like shiny bit right there. It's just a little teeny bit. So I try to use ones that are kind of fancy there, like 'cause a little extra shine to it on this one, just because it's the very center, and it's such a small bit. It's like the size of a garbanzo bean or a marble or something. Now I do that. So this is the shinier one, the shimmering aqua, and I'm going to use a 26 gauge aqua. Imagine that. Here's the deal, though. I just also wanted to show you this one. I realized I probably have another tube somewhere, but right now I could only find half a tube left. Oh, and by the way, for the bigger segment, before I forget, is about a little bit over a tube, 6-inch tube. The second segment is about half a 6-inch tube to 3/4 of a 6-inch tube. I didn't really pay attention too much. This last one is not even like this one here is not even like, you know, it's like a 1/3 of a tube of it. So just in case you're trying to ration. Now, I don't need very much at all because what I'm going to do for the last one is I'm going to do 6 9-bead continuous, because they're so small, I'm actually going to go by count here for sure. So 6 9-bead continuous loops and 4 7-bead ones. But the reason I'm pointing this out right now is because loading it up right now on here with that shallow on a regular size spinner can be a bit of a pain in the neck. To say the least. It doesn't really, it's hard to get him to pick up because there's not a lot of centrifugal force. I mean, he's not looking too bad right now. This is kind of borderline of when it gets annoying, is like at half a tube. So this is when I might possibly bring in, let's use a funnel so I don't make too much of a mess, a smaller spinner. And I love this one I got on Amazon because they're not custom made, but they're handmade. And so they're really, it's super smooth. I love this little guy. The last name of the artist is Ritter, and that's really sweet. They just keep spinning. And so when I have just a half bottle left, this is so much easier. And I love it for like 15s and things like that. So for this one, I don't need very much. I didn't even count how much I need. You know, I should have looked at that, but I'd probably do like, I don't know, 18 inches just to be safe. But I probably don't even need close to that much. So, because all I'm doing, again, are 6 9-beads and 4 7-beads. So, I don't know, probably even a foot or less is fine. But again, it's so much easier to spin to get these last, like, dregs of a tube when you have a smaller spinner. So, I highly recommend that. In fact, I think that's probably enough. And so my cute little spinner can go. It's so But yeah, that thing is handy. Because I never get to the bottom of a tube with my regular size spinner because the centrifugal force just is not enough to push it on at some point. So these are just counts. So again, I'm doing 6 9 beads. So I'm just going to count real fast and do a 9 bead. Make sure I have that tail there. And another reason, so while you're doing like that first monster segment, you could do in more than one segment, but the reason the less amount of units the better is because you don't want a lot of wire wrapping around making a bunch of clutter in there. So I'm trying to get that one with the bead on top and getting it pinched. My hands are getting a little tired, so we'll see 5 and then 4, and then again doing this. And that's another good reason to use a 26 on the 3rd unit, because then the wire is also thinner and there's less bulk on the stem wire. So now I'm gonna look at this one. I'm gonna pull up, make sure that I have, that one I didn't do tight enough. There, we're doing one more. So I just have that 1 bead up top. So doing a 9 bead count. 9 beads. I'm normally faster at doing this, and you get the gist with this. Now the other thing too is I said like I do a 4 twist on that first unit, on the monster unit. After that, I probably just do 3 twists. Now why does it matter? Just because again, it's about the bulk around the stem wire. We don't want too much. So I'm gonna finish this one off, and then we're gonna get to assembly. But now you get the idea. I'm thinking if there's anything, other little hints that we need to talk about. But we're almost there. We're almost to assembly. And again, these are not, you know, tricky things to do, and it's gonna look so pretty. If I do say so myself. So again, you can use your teeth, get it flat, however you want to do it. You know, try to get these. Now, these are just going to be curved in, and I'm going to kind of bend them with my forceps at some time, where I can do them with my fingers too. These are going to be bended in and bent in. Bended? That's a bent. They're going to be bent in around the center and kind of make a little, like, just a little circle thing going on. So we're not too uptight about these. And like I said, I won't make you watch me do them, but I'm getting all transfixed into them right now. But you get the idea. And then we're going to do our assembly. And I got to remember to put these on my bead list, because I'm about to do a big order from my local bead shop. And this one definitely needs to be on it, because I love my shimmering aqua. Again, that's what she calls it. My local bead store owner gave it that name. I have no idea what it's really called, but it has a number. 2, 3. So I just spin that 4 times. It's not the end of the world if you do 3 or 4 ones, but again, it helps with the bulk to not have as much spins, as much turns. So it gets to be harder and harder to do them smaller and smaller. So the last bit, I guess, making you do this whole thing. This last bit here is going to be a 7. You're doing 4 7s. And those are really teeny. And they're not, you know, you just get them as flat as you can. You can pinch them before you twist, which is one way to make sure you can get them flatter, because there's not much to grab onto. And these are like really going to be right around. The whole point of these is just to kind of cover the tip of your stem wire. And have, like, that's pretty much it. You're going to curve them over the stem wire. And so they're probably going to be hidden underneath the 9 bead ones anyway. So it doesn't really matter with that. But, so we're going to get these together, and then the next segment we'll talk about how we put the whole thing together. And get your pretty flower, and then we'll talk about the other details, like leaves and a calyx, and getting it all put together. I guess I can stop this thing for now. I'm always like, I gotta finish before I can stop. Oh, is there really only one more? We'll do one more and we'll finish it together. Okay, because then I'm gonna show you, since there's only one more continuous loop to do, I'm gonna show you, and they're all separated by 1/4 of an inch. We're always just doing 1/4 of an inch. And again, with these, pinch first and then twist. Now, I'm gonna cut off. I'm gonna give myself about, I don't know. I like on the bigger end, we want to have a longer bit because again, that's gonna be my wrap around. This one is my initial wrap around. You don't need as much, you know. So, but unless you're worried, super worried about your wire, which it can add up, so I get it. Otherwise, always, you know, give yourself a little breathing room on that. Okay, so I do put a little bend in these first, so I don't have to do it with the forceps later because that would be really a pain in the neck. When there's actually a thing. And so let's look at our layers. So we have our first layer. Well, now I'm calling it the first. We have our inner layer. So 4 7 bead, and then 6. Make sure they're turned around there. 6 and 9 bead, and then here's our next inner layer. It's kind of hard to really see what's going on with this little guy on it. And then we have our next layer going out, and finally our big floppy layer, which is gonna be hard to show. Because big and floppy. And there's going to be our lovely flower. In about 2 seconds, we're going to, well, it's not going to be 2 seconds for me, but it'll be 2 seconds for you because I'm going to, you know, stop this and then restart it. We're going to actually turn it into a mum. But you can already see the cool colors and the way they kind of go together, even the little shimmering one in the middle. And there's our deconstructed mum. About to be constructed.